Dede, are you sure this whole ceremony is really necessary? It's so boring.
Passover isn't boring. It's a very meaningful holiday.
Well, if it's so meaningful, how come there's no presents?
Stu, the Passover Seder is a time for Jewish families to come together and retell the history of their people. We've been doing it for thousands of years.
Sounds boring to me.
Welcome to this special Passover episode of Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. The biblical story of the Exodus has been told and retold countless times, not only around the Passover table, but also on film and TV. But few of these retellings are as memorable as a Rugrats Passover, which aired on Nickelodeon in 1995. I'm Jonathan Friedman.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer-engineer Mike Tomrin is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Jewish Museum of the American West, and Atheists United Studios.
We're thrilled to top Melanie Chartoff, who voiced Didi Pickles and her mother Minka on Nickelodeon's long-running cartoon Rugrats. She was also Principal Musso on Parker Lewis Can't Lose, a cast member on Fridays, and a guest star on Seinfeld, among many other credits. More recently, she authored a memoir, Odd Woman Out, Exposure in Essays and Stories. Melanie, welcome back to Amusing Jews.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be back with you. I'm making a comeback with you. That's a big deal.
Last time you were on Amusing Jews, you showed us how you based your Rugrats character, Didi Pickles, on your own mother's voice. Was Didi presented to you as explicitly Jewish?
Actually, no. I later found out that all the producers and writers were Jews. They all were bringing up infants, which gave them the common ground to create the material for this show, which was ample. But it didn't really take hold for quite a number of months, maybe until the second year did that element come to the fore, that Didi and Stu had a mixed marriage, and that he had a set of Catholic or WASPy grandparents, and Didi had Jewish grandparents. And so I think they got a lot of story out of that. A lot of possibilities arose. One of my questions always was, is the dog Jewish or Catholic? We never really determined that. And I don't think the children were bar mitzvahed, but they had a little bit of every holiday, including Ramadan, to celebrate. So it was a very equal opportunity holiday series as we went on through the years. But the Jewish element was really a favorite for a lot of us. There were several Jews in the cast, and we loved milking our histories of our ancestors and our elders. Mine all passed when I was about 4 or 5. They all just kind of disappeared from Earth. So I had to build my interpretation of Minka on a lot of the people in the Fairfax district in Los Angeles, which was primarily Eastern European Jews. So my Minka character was an amalgamation of all the wonderful old Jewish ladies I met. And I also had to please the producers, who all had a different recollection of their grandmothers.
Nobody grinds gefilte fish like Boris.
Boris! Stu, don't mention my father's name. How about Mr. Grandpa Boris?
Boris! Hey, who's Boris?
Look, I told you I couldn't lead a Seder, okay? I'm not Boris.
Boris! Stu, now you made my mother cry.
So the character, I got a lot of input from everybody, and it morphed over the years. She became more like Didi because, after all, she was her mother. Then other people said, well, no, we don't want her so much like Didi. We want her with a deeper voice. So I went through several incarnations, but I tried to stick to the flavor of those beloved grannies with the socks rolled up around their ankles and the thick-heeled shoes and the bun, the white bun, which both my grandmothers had back in the 50s. So that was my little love letter to the Jewish elders, who I don't know so much anymore. They're kind of not around in my life anyway, maybe in yours.
Did you find yourself sort of straddling the line between unique characters and stereotypes?
I never thought in terms of stereotypes, really. I mean, no actor wants to think they're being a stereotype, but I won't take offense. No, I had human feelings for each of these in their situations, and I felt my feelings were Aboriginal and my interpretation was Aboriginal. Although I have to say, in recent years, I've been sort of surprised at how many Jewish cliches there are. I've been asked to read for and have booked some films in which the Jewish mother is depicted as being a harridan for getting her son married to a non-goy, to a Jewish girl. That has been kind of a continuing storyline, and I've been Tova Feldshuh always gets the roles. But I've read for a lot of those kinds of things. I'm actually in one, a short film that's running at all the Jewish film festivals, in which I play a Jewish woman complaining that the girl, and her boyfriend have broken up. There's no hope for her now. She's 28. This theme keeps coming up. I wonder how many more generations will get to milk that cliche.
It's almost like that cliche only exists on film, maybe at this point.
I don't know. There is a new series that I read for it. I read for the mother, of course, Tova Feldshuh got it. But it's called Nobody Wants This. And it's about a rabbi who gets involved with a shiksa and all the conversation it causes. So I know that. I was surprised. There's such charming actors that they've made it a success. But I was kind of surprised at how well it's done and it's such a hit. So somebody is sentimental about those sorts of characters still.
Had you done much voice acting before landing the Rugrats roles?
I've done a lot of commercials in New York City. Whenever they needed an Elaine May type and she couldn't make it, I would be hired. I was very able to do the Elaine May of that period. I just took it off the album, the improvised album. So I did her a lot. And the style of voiceovers in that period, like in the 70s and 80s, was like review. It was like comedy review. And so it was fun to do all kinds of characters in those. I played a shrink, I played a patient, I played a Jewish mother. So I did a lot of those kinds of things in New York, but actually Rugrats was my first animated audition. And I really lucked out that day. Really fortunate.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe. For millennial Jews especially, a Rugrats Passover is an important cultural touchdown. Did you know it would be such a phenomenon?
No idea. No, we all weren't delighted with it, though, because none of us had ever seen anything like that. But we had no idea that it would be such a hit. And that when I met the man that became my husband, all his nieces and nephews knew all the lines better than I did.
Don't worry, Mom. Everything's going to be just fine.
Looks like the Seder is off.
The Seder is not off.
And they wanted me to say them with them, and I felt badly that I didn't recall them because, we'd done a lot of episodes, and I did a lot of other things since. There's a certain point in an actor's life where you just can't remember every piece of dialogue you've ever said to please your nieces and nephews. So it was very touching for me to have made that little mark, in people's lives, in the culture.
One of the great things about the episode is how secular it is. It's Moses, played by baby Tommy, who brings on the plagues. He hears a voice from the burning bush, but God isn't mentioned. And the story centers on babies being liberated from the oppression of older kids rather than a battle between the Egyptian gods and Israelite monotheism. These seem like careful choices. Do you know how the episode came about?
Oh, I wish I could say I hung out with the writers and gave them instruction, but no, they were in their own little offices somewhere in another studio. And we were behind a glass booth, like insects. We were in a little glass cage being directed. And we would get the scripts maybe a few days before and do them. So I can't say that I was contributing to the creation of the episode. I wish I could.
Did the Passover episode and later the Hanukkah episode have any impact on your own Jewish identity?
Well, not until I met my husband about 15 years ago. And he was very entrenched in the Jewish culture, had a bar mitzvah. He was a real Jew boy. And I became more Jewish as a consequence of being involved in his mishpachah, So now I have, this Saturday, I have Passover with his sister-in-law, the rabbi. So I've been immersed in a whole wonderful Jewish culture that my parents, who were devout atheist agnostics, didn't really participate in. We were very proud of being Jews culturally. My father would say, Barbara Streisand, she's Jewish. I mean, he was always bragging about our Jewish talents. But it wasn't much a part of my culture. I think I went to bar mitzvahs and Jewish weddings, but we didn't really go to services or celebrate Shabbat or anything like that. So in the last 15 years, I've become more Jewish.
And maybe acting in the time that you did with people like Andy Kaufman and others very prominent Jewish people, maybe you didn't have to go out of your way to sort of prove your Jewishness.
Well, Andy was a very nice Jewish boy in my experience. I knew him back in New York when he was doing the Mighty Mouse, when he first broke out with the Mighty Mouse routines.
Mr. Trouble never hangs around when he hears this mighty sound. Here I come to save the day. I think the mighty mouse is on the way.
He was always very lovely to me. And when we came out here, and I was working days and I wanted to exercise at night, he would watch me run the Fairfax High School track, a hotbed of Judaism, by the way. My husband went there to Fairfax High School, and he would watch me run it at night to keep me safe, which I thought was incredibly kind and sweet. He was very gentlemanly, and it was kind of astonishing that he had this he did this code switch, and he'd turn into this charismatic monster. He'd turn into Elvis, but in real life, he wasn't all that sexy and dynamic. He was kind of muted. He would just change all the time. And then in later years, when I worked with him, I saw that he'd gotten far more committed to a more dangerous aspect of comedy. And he really morphed out of that nice Jewish boy into a burning artist, just more interested in impact and in really entertaining.
Melanie, what are you working on these days?
Well, let me just say that I recently started hearing that I'm in this documentary about Andy Kaufman called Thank You Very Much. It's about his later years, his Los Angeles years, his Los Angeles girlfriend years, and their interviews with Steve Martin and Danny DeVito and Marilu Henner and me, and the late Bud Friedman, who put me on at the improv clubs in New York and LA, and George Shapiro, who was a dear friend of mine, who was Andy's manager. And it's pretty good. I think it's the first documentary about Andy Kaufman. And I think Alex Braverman, who put it together, did a really terrific job with it in showing some of the underpinnings of Andy's philosophy and some of the reasons why he chose to make the choices he did. So I'm kind of happy to be part of that. It's a really intelligently well-edited piece. And it's on Apple Plus.
Speaking of Passover, you have an essay in your wonderful book, Odd Woman Out, titled Love at First Seder. Would you mind reading an excerpt for us?
Not at all. This was an early date with my soon-to-be husband. And I always felt it's dangerous to meet family in the first trimester of a relationship because you're never sure you might get attached to people you'll never see again. But he and I felt very comfortable together, so I agreed to go to the Seder, and here's the scene from it. The rest of my date's family was more reserved. Apparently, I was not the first nice Jewish girl her father had brought to Passover. His family was very observant, and not just of Jewish rituals. If I married into this group, I'd be converting to a bit more Jewish than I currently presented. Fortunately, as a lifelong actor, I'd played many roles on the Jewish spectrum with varying degrees of accent and behavior, so I was undaunted. They seated me across from Ariana, next to her father, and as we noshed on parsley, his uncle gave me a small portion of the Haggadah to read. Felt like an audition. I was bold in rewording the text to include a more female perspective. Ariana loved that. Well-versed in gender politics, she whispered of her wish to work with cisgender and transgender clients alike. Her knowledge of all the pronouns and the proclivities amazed me. My focus on the bitter herbs faded as I took stock of some of my blessings. Why is this Seder different from all other Seders? Because this Seder, I had a big girl crush on my date's daughter. And my delight with her was running neck and neck with my delight with her dad. I began thinking way too far ahead. She certainly didn't need any mothering from me. Her biological parents had done all the heavy lifting, the bearing, the rearing, the loving, the nursing, the weaning. Ariana was independent, loving, smart, and as tall as I was. Pulling her into my lap would be very unwieldy. And already in the midst of her blissful engagement to her fiancé, she wouldn't need my relationship counseling with my long dating life littered with frogs and other plagues. What could I offer her beyond old show tunes was one of the 4 questions I asked myself that night. I got included in all the next big moments in my man friend and Ariana's life. Her graduation, her receiving of many awards, her next Passover at which everyone now knew my name and gave me more Haggadah to read and more portions to eat. I passed all their Passover tests. It would have been enough, I thought, to meet this wonderful man. But I got to dance with Sam, his son, and sing at Ariana's wedding to mark a year later, Dayenu. And when her father finally asked me to marry him, I asked him if his daughter would feel okay about it. Are you kidding? He said. After the first Passover, she asked, please, Daddy, can we keep this one? And I said yes, maybe for a long, long time. So that's just a little bit of my delicious book. Still on sale on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And I also perform the audiobook, which is 8 hours long, nice for a car ride to and from something 4 hours away. So the book is still selling very well. It gets really good reviews. I'm very proud of it.
Well, thank you so much, Melanie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me back. It's been fun. And happy Passover to you all.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.
What are we going to do now?
Have a seat, everyone. I'll tell you another Passover story.
Oh, about how the Hebrews wandered to the desert for 40 years before they reached the Promised Land?
No. About how my Uncle Simon and Aunt Riva met for the first time at the Seder of Pinkus the Tailor. Now, this was back in the shtetl in Smolensk, and was it cold. Anyway, Uncle Simon wasn't even supposed to be at the Pinkus Seder, but his wagon wheel broke on a sharp cobblestone, and he had to stay the night. My Aunt Riva wasn't going to party there. In fact, she had a face like a